Cyberpunk 2077 is getting a lot of love and updates.
Patch 2.1, a few rather notable features did become bugged. You probably noticed finishers no longer working properly. These cool stylized ones will no longer trigger, and instead it's always going to be the slow-mo finisher. Another giant change that is now confirmed to be a bug is Sonic.
Yeah, a little bit annoying, but you fix and change so many things. Small bugs are bound to happen. But the good thing about CDPR is, hey, they're fixing the bugs. You can't say they're not.
Sonic Shock not blocking traceability. Previously, uploading Sonic Shock first would make all of your subsequent quick hacks untraceable. That was removed with patch 2.1, a huge nerf for stealth netrunners. But thankfully, CDPR has since confirmed that this is an error, and since then, modders have actually resolved both of these issues. I'll have links down below if you're on PC. Those were two of the big ones, but there definitely were a few other issues with patch 2.1. But thankfully, they should all be getting fixed relatively soon. Just recently on Steam
Nice.
a QA branch for Cyberpunk 2077 was added and has been getting consistently updated. The first major change came in December, but now with the new year, we've seen this updated several more times. This is representative of CDPR testing the new update, what is going to very likely become patch 2.11. And for context, when it came to patch 2.1, it was about 2 weeks between when the CDPR QA branch was updated until the update released publicly. So in all likelihood, in just another week or two, patch 2.11 should drop for Cyberpunk 2077, and this should largely be a bug-fixing patch, and patch 2.11 could end up being Cyberpunk 2077's final update ever. Back in December, CDPR confirmed.
Yeah, they're actually planning to do new things with, what is it called? The prequel to Cyberpunk or the sequel to Cyberpunk? Well, there's going to be a Cyberpunk 2. They're just going to call it Cyberpunk 2, but that's a different thing. So yeah, as they said, they're going to at some point stop actually updating the game, but my prediction is that they're not gonna just abandon the game with all of the bugs. And if some kind of big ginormous issue happens, they're gonna fix it. Because CDPR Red is kind of forced into that at this point. Hey, they released Cyberpunk 2077 so badly playable it was insane. Okay? It was bad. If you have seen the Steam charts, you can't even deny it. It releases... No, I'm gonna make these numbers up, but it's like 500k people playing on Steam. And then, literally in 3 days, it's down to like 20k or something like that. That is a huge drop-off, okay? And that's because the game was that bad. So, CDPR is probably forever gonna fix things pretty fast and pretty soon. But admittedly, that's a good thing, obviously. That's a really good thing. And that's going to tell people, hey, even if they release something that has a bug or two, they're going to fix it. Unlike pretty much everyone else in the AAA industry. Hey, it is what it is.
To IGN that update 2.1 is the final major update for this 3-year-old game. So though we could see another update after patch 2.11, we're really at the end here. In all likelihood, the only remaining updates to Cyberpunk 2077 are going to be bug fixes, and if patch 2.11 addresses all of the bugs, then yeah, that might literally be it, and actually for good reason. And just this past week, we also got a bunch of news around Cyberpunk 2077 sequel codenamed Orion. As a part of their long-term plans, CDPR
This is the one I'm talking about. Okay, this is bigly.
wants to develop 2 AAA games in parallel. They've actually been doing this for the past year, working on both Phantom Liberty alongside Polaris, the next Witcher game. But since the completion of Phantom Liberty, things have started to shift. We can now see former Cyberpunk developers moving over to work on Polaris as that becomes even more intense. They describe wanting to have 400 developers on that.
Makes sense. This makes sense. They're not abandoning other projects, but obviously, the closer the deadline, the more intense the project, the more important the project, you're gonna just put your resources in that more than in other things. This makes sense. This is not a bad thing. So, if you hear, oh my god, all the developers are now working at The Witcher, this is a bad... No, it's fine. It's fine. Now, admittedly, maybe it's bad, but 9 times out of 10, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Project later this year, but also many of the biggest names around Cyberpunk 2077 and its development are now moving into the United States and specifically to the new Boston office to work on these.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one, People, this is not a secret that a lot of people think, and rightfully so in my opinion, the reason that, The Witcher wasn't garbage, that a lot of things were good, because It was made in Europe. Now they literally are putting their offices in America, and, well, Boston's a shithole, but so is the rest of America, and Vancouver. Bro, it's gonna be a miracle if there's a single person in the Vancouver office that doesn't have purple hair with 3 different colors sprinkled in like a goddamn sundae. Okay? Dude, whatever the Vancouver branch does is gonna be a failure. Because again, Vancouver, you know where that is? Canada. The place that literally firstly asks you, do you not want to self-delete so we can sell your organs to fund more indigenous people's dancing lessons for the masses? Bro, this is such a huge mistake. And people have rightfully said this, that they think it's a huge mistake going to America. Also, that in America, things are going to be more expensive than in Warsaw. It is what it is. It's just the way things happen. It's going to be more expensive making this. So they're going to have less of a budget, less resources, and weaker quality people to actually do the things that you want. This is crazy. Yeah, so a lot of people are very, very concerned about CD Projekt Red North America. And yeah, I'm one of those people because I think it's going to be a shit show. I think it's going to be an absolute disaster.
Cyberpunk sequel known as Orion. Pal Sasko, the quest director on Cyberpunk 2077, is in Boston along with Sarah, one of the quest designers notably responsible for Judy's storyline, and even Igor has arrived, the narrative director on Cyberpunk 2077, who mentions that things in Orion...
Bruh, Igor after spending, a year in America, he's not going to have a bald head. He's going to have a purple head, okay? And probably 15 piercings and a couple of STDs to go around, okay? Not good. Not good.
Have kickstarted and described Cyberpunk 2077 as just a warm-up for Orion. So if you're somebody who is still holding out hope for a second expansion, a multiplayer mode, or really any other major updates to Cyberpunk 2077, you should probably put that to bed. At this point, many of the most notable names who worked on Cyberpunk 2077 and Phantom Liberty have moved on. They're either working on the next Witcher game, or here, as we could see, several are working on the Cyberpunk sequel. Although unfortunately, the sequel is likely still around 5 years or more away. Many people still need to be hired for this new CDPR NA studio, and from some past interviews, it seems like this game is really only going into pre or even just conceptual production. It seems like almost immediately after Phantom Liberty and right around the time of release, CDPR was working on...
I can already see how everyone in America is getting... Cyberpunk was... There was not enough femininity, so much toxic masculinity, microaggressions, there, we need to change so much. Oh yeah, it's gonna be rough, boys.
Concepting for Orion, and it seems like right now it's really just some of the higher ups and the leads of various teams that are there in Boston as they start to build out their team for this new studio and actually start developing many of the aspects of Orion. And as a result of all of this ramping up over the past couple of weeks, quite a few fans have been wondering if CDPR has already left a teaser for what Orion will entail. This sign was found in-game. You could travel from Chicago to Night City in under 3 hours, worry-free, and it's all coming in 2080. Could we see a Cyberpunk sequel set in 2080? Chicago, perhaps donning the name Cyberpunk 2080.
Oh god, they're not gonna have enough. Dude, the lawless city. Okay, well, what is then gonna be Chicago? The literal hellhole of existence?
It'd be a nice time jump with another pretty epic city to explore, but this is probably not happening because it seems like this sign is merely an ad for an in-game maglev train that is on the way. But who knows? Maybe it really is just a teaser for their next project. What to me is a bit more promising is this Orion prompt from the Cyberpunk 2020 game, which is of course what Cyberpunk 2077 and really the entire franchise is based off of. Although yes, before you comment down below, I am aware Cyberpunk 2013 is a thing and the first edition of this. I probably shouldn't have have corrected myself, just a farm engagement. But either way, this Orion prompt is actually pretty interesting. It describes Orion as a group of talented extractors who handle hostage rescue, but also kidnap people on the down low. I can see this being an interesting opening in Orion. Perhaps you begin as a part of this elite Orion group, somewhat similar to Cyberpunk 2077, but then something goes wrong. Perhaps you're tasked with actually kidnapping somebody instead of just saving them, or one of your extraction missions just goes wrong and you find yourself on a distinct and different path. But CDPR has also just been posting up some of their big wins as of late. They revealed that Phantom...
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good story, honestly. You know, you're working for that Orion and you need to, you know, do a kidnapping, but the kidnapping goes completely south and now you take the blame for it, or you're abandoned and they want to cut loose ends. Hey, stuff like this seems reasonable for the Cyberpunk setting. True.
Liberty has now sold 5 million copies through the end of 2023. This is a quite notable bump.
How much is that? How much does this cost? How much does Cyberpunk actually cost? Like 50 probably, or something like that, euros? So they made 250 mil. Pretty good.
Of 700,000 copies sold.
But how much did it cost to make and fix?
Largely just in December. We heard in late November how it was about 4.3 million copies sold. One of the CEOs of CDPR commented on this, mentioning how, at the same point in time, just 3 months after release, the two expansions for The Witcher 3 had an attachment rate, meaning people who bought the original game then also bought the expansion, of 22% and 24% respectively, while Phantom Liberty has an attachment rate that's squarely in the middle at 23%. And honestly, this is huge, even though it's slightly lower than one of The Witcher 3's expansions. Both of those expansions came in about a year after the release of The Witcher 3, the first one coming just 5 months later and the second one coming a little over a year later. Phantom Liberty didn't drop until almost 3 years after Cyberpunk 2077 released. As a result, many people just move on. They beat the game and moved on to playing other games. It's not like they were sitting there itching for an expansion. Obviously, some of us were, but a lot of other people weren't. So the fact that the expansion still sold on par with their past games is really a great sign that the quality of the
It is a great sign because, you know, the expansion wasn't released a year after. The longer you wait to release an expansion, essentially, the less it sells. Because if you're playing a single-player game, or even a multiplayer, honestly, you play it, you're done, you leave, and now there's an expansion. Bro, you probably don't even remember where you honestly left. So it's kind of harsh, you know?
Expansion really did bring a lot of players back, and I have to imagine releasing Cyberpunk 2077 2.0 right around the same time also really helped here. It was the perfect storm to start a new playthrough and just really play a reimagined version of this game. And the current CEO of CDPR commented on this as well, saying, "To be honest, the decision to go through with the expansion so long after launch of the single-player game was a bit counterintuitive. But what happened is proof to us that solid content that people are happy with is the way to go." And to really show how much of a milestone and achievement this all was for CDPR, even other developers from other companies have praised this incredibly high sales rate, especially when you consider the time of release. It's one of those things where this would be impressive on its own right, but then when you add on top the incredibly buggy release and losing over 90% of your player base in just a couple of months, it really is kind of a crowning achievement on the monumental turnaround Cyberpunk 2077 just saw. Which, speaking of, we even get a bit more insight into all of that with a recent interview from the former CEO of CDPR. Adam Kaczynski just transitioned from CEO of CDPR to Chief Strategy Officer. And this is honestly kind of a big deal. This means that the two joint CEOs that oversaw the launch and part of the recovery of Cyberpunk 2077 are now gone. Marcin, who is one of the original founders of CDPR and co-CEO, stepped down last year. This only after much of the work to fix Cyberpunk 2077 was complete, so he did stick around to make sure that was seen through. And now the other co-CEO is stepping down in the new year after the release of Phantom Liberty. So both of those CEOs that saw one of the most disastrous launches in game history, but also one of the biggest comeback stories in gaming history, are now gone. But just before leaving, Adam Kaczynski did give one final interview as CEO, and he opened up on what's currently going on with Orion. He describes how the conceptual stage started some time ago. We already know what Orion will be, however the team is currently being built, and its core will be people developing the North American studio in Boston. Based on them, we'll build a larger structure, including our team from Vancouver.
Hey, say what you will. I like Cyberpunk as a story. It's pretty good. Admittedly, it makes no literal fucking sense. But, you know, it's technically pretty good, right? Because in a dystopian future like this, okay, the difference between classes would be so much more visible than this. There would be effectively slave classes, which, by the way, is exactly the way that we're going with the way that we're doing things in the world. Yay! Yay! I'm excited.
Vancouver. Of course, there will also be support from developers from Poland. He goes on to describe that after Cyberpunk 2077, CDPR now plans to announce release dates much later compared to previously, so perhaps following an almost Bethesda approach that many companies are adopting now of revealing—
Oh god, don't follow Bethesda approach. Oh god, no. Duh. How about you just don't? That sounds good. Yeah, how about you just don't? Sounds beautiful, actually.
and releasing games in the same year, or at least relatively close to each other. Of course, Cyberpunk 2077 had the huge issue of getting many large showcases that seemingly were just crafted to make the game look good and not really an indication of what was actually going on development-wise, or even what the game would eventually end up being. And even with Phantom Liberty, we saw CDPR start to enact this approach of really condensing things down, where we really only learned about Phantom Liberty and saw it for the first time a year before it actually came out. Although unlike Bethesda, CDPR has no interest in being acquired. The former CEO reiterates here, we are not interested in being included in any larger entity. We have worked our whole lives to get to the position we have now, and we believe that in a few years we will be—
Smart. Look at Valve. Valve does a lot of things actually badly. Poorly, even. But still, Valve is one of the most loved companies because it does a lot of things also good. That's because it's not a privately... Well, it is a privately held company. You know, Gabe's the owner of it. That's it. He doesn't... If Gabe doesn't want to do something for Valve, it's not happening. No one can force him to do anything. So, you know, the more people don't open themselves up to be publicly traded, kind of the better. I mean, make a good game, get a bunch of money, keep doing things. I mean, just make good games. It's that simple, honestly, right? Instead, what we have here is a bunch of shitty companies making a bunch of shitty games, and then there's one company that makes a good game, and people are like, oh, can you imagine that? A good game just sold and made a lot of money. It didn't even have to have 50 trillion microtransactions and nickel and diming in it. Wow, people just bought the game because it was good and it sold well and it made money. Wow. Yeah, imagine that.
Be even bigger and stronger. We have ambitious plans, and we are passionate about what we do. We value independence. As we've really started to see over the past year or so, CDPR does have plans to expand beyond just AAA game releases. In this interview mentioning how this recently announced live-action Cyberpunk project is in an early phase, but we already have a partner who will help us implement this project, and they are currently in talks with potential partners for their mobile projects as well. And it seems like this is CDPR's plan in the interim. Release spin-off pieces of media to keep fans interested in this rather large gap between games. I mean, even if you just look at Polaris, the next Witcher game, that still may be 3+ years away. But this all may lead to the single best time to be playing Cyberpunk 2077 ever. CD Projekt Red has been doing a phenomenal job at recovery, fixing Cyberpunk 2077 with regular and consistent updates, and even as of late, overhauling several in-game systems. But as you could probably imagine, this is the exact opposite of what you want to see a highly modded game. With each update, mods had to be fixed to work again, and some completely overhauled as in-game systems were dramatically changed with these updates. It is really only in just the past few weeks that we have seen many of the most popular mods become usable with Phantom Liberty. That was months of—
Yeah, people don't talk about this nearly enough, honestly. But yeah, don't forget, Cyberpunk 2077 has modding. And it's, you know, essentially it's the same level of modding as something like, you know, Bethesda games like Skyrim or Fallout or whatever. No, not Starfield. Fuck Starfield. But, you know, you get the point. And this is also a reason why they will stop updating. Because the mods are going to get broken. You know, it's only a matter of time. Look at Fallout 4. There is the Enclave expansion, which is pretty much just like a DLC that replaces the main game. And now there's Fallout London coming out soon, which is, again, completely replacing the main game plus expansions. It's pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. And It's only a matter of time until this same process happens in Cyberpunk. Until someone just, adds a chunk of the map onto the game, because they can.
Of effort, not actually adding new features, but just getting things working again. But now as we find ourselves likely on the cusp of the final update for the game coming, we have this giant window for mods to prosper, for authors to focus on new content rather than just fixing existing content, and we may even see the modability of Cyberpunk change. Last year, CDPR announced that a proper mod editor would be coming to The Witcher 3. This will allow you to create your own experiences in the game by making
a lot of slutty girls. That's what it's going to allow to create. It's going to be lit boys, 10 out of 10.
Something completely new or editing existing quests and content. We're planning on releasing it for free in 2024. This is huge. This is the type of release that will allow a new level of modability and really just true custom content, more akin to what you see in something like Fallout 4. So of course, as of right now, this is only slated for The Witcher 3, but you have to imagine CDPR is at least considering bringing this to Cyberpunk as well. Cyberpunk 2077 is in a weird spot, as this is their last project on their engine, Red Engine. Soon, their entire company will have moved over to Unreal Engine 5 for all future projects, and Cyberpunk 2077 source code has already leaked all the way back in 2021 when CDPR was hacked. Cyberpunk 2077 has more players, more mods made, and even more mods downloaded, so it really seems obvious that modding tools would come eventually, right? Well, there are a couple of issues that could potentially block this. First, the game is still getting updates, of course. We have what is likely to be the final patch coming soon, but also things like FSR 3 are supposedly coming one day, but even more relevant is just how many problems the engine caused with Cyberpunk 2077. The previous game director, Jason Slama, said back in 2022 that when it comes to developing open-world games, players can go whatever direction they want. They can handle content in any order that they want.
That's
theoretically.
pretty good.
And to really encapsulate what that means, you need to have a really stable environment where you can make changes with a high level of confidence that it's not going to break in 1,600 other places down the line. And I think this was really highlighting what the problem with Red Engine under Cyberpunk 2077.
I mean, that's smart. Oh yeah, they're gonna, by the way, use Unreal 5, I think, for the next game. Yeah, they're completely ditching Red Engine. I mean, it technically makes sense. It's not a big deal, probably.
77 was. As they tried to make changes, things would break elsewhere. So as you're working on the game, you're improving one thing, adding new features in one area, while also hindering or hurting things in another. And we even saw this with almost every update. I mean, even just look at patch 2.1. For all of the new content and QA work that was done, several features were still broken. It's not like these are quiet, tucked away features, but some fairly prominent ones. Ones where the players actually recognized they were broken within hours of the update coming out.
Makes
you might
sense.
be thinking, okay, who cares? They're using the same engine for The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, right? Well, yes, but not exactly. Red Engine underwent a rework from The Witcher 3 to Cyberpunk 2077, and it may simply be the case that Cyberpunk 2077's version of this updated engine has far more problems, and perhaps too many problems for modding tools to be properly built atop of it, or at least properly built atop of it in a timely manner where the investment makes sense for CDPR. Either way, regardless of what happens, modding will almost certainly improve, as now updates are going to slow down for the game and mod.
Yep, we know that. Anyway, that's pretty much it. That was Juicehead. 10 out of 10 cyberpunkishness. I like it. Hey, hopefully more good things and less American things. It is what it is. Anyway, this was Quizzer Says, and thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.